Behind me is the new 2 Series, the BMW G42 220i. It's kind of the entry-level model into the range. And in this video, I'm going to give you a quick update on my thoughts of the car. I'm going to give you a bit of information about the tech and specs, and we're going to take it for a drive, and I'll give you a quick review of it. So then, what do we get from the 220i? Well, we get a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It's the B48 engine, which many are used to from the BMW M135i and also the Mini Clubman. Although this is a detuned variant, so it's 184 brake horsepower. It'll still do 300 newton meters of torque. 0 to 62 miles per hour is dispatched in 7.5 seconds, and it will do a top speed of 146 miles per hour. Now, this 220i is rear-wheel drive only. It's not an X-Drive variant. It has an 8-speed ZF box, 19-inch wheels, and it will do a combined MPG of 44 miles to the gallon. So as we get inside the BMW 220i, or the 2 Series in general, it's a very, very lovely place to be. I think in terms of how BMW's interiors have come over the years, it really is a really, really nice interior setup. And actually, you're going to spend the majority of your time in this car, so really and truly you want to make sure that it is a lovely place to be, and this definitely doesn't disappoint. Now, if we look at the steering wheel is nice, it's chunky. Because this car comes with the comfort and the tech pack, I do get the heated steering wheel, which actually, in this kind of weather, when it's nice and cold outside, this is very, very welcome. We do get, obviously, paddles here, as well as kind of cruise control, lane assist, and all the other jazz and gizmos that you'd expect from a relatively new BMW car. Looking at the kind of build quality, you get these nice lights here as well, so that kind of when the car is when the doors are open and the car's off, it kind of flashes red. So if anyone was to be driving up towards you from the rear at night, they know that your door is open. But more so, I'm impressed with kind of the stitching and just the overall build quality. Nothing really too much to say about that center display there, because it's very familiar. We've talked about it in many, many cars, and it is, you know, we've got used to it. Moving on to the center section here, I think this is where BMW are still doing bits, because many new manufacturers are effectively saying, do you know what, we want to do away with buttons and just do everything touchscreen, which actually doesn't really work for a lot of people. I don't necessarily think it's that safe when you're driving, so having buttons here is very, very welcome. Of course, you do have the very good infotainment system, and BMW, coupled with Apple CarPlay, do an incredible job at providing good infotainment as and when you really need it. Of course, heated seats, buttons, lovely climate control buttons. Everything that you need to control the car is here at the touch of a button, so that's very, very welcome. You kind of got your preset settings here as well as your volume controls, etc. You've got wireless charging in here, which is very good, and you get cup holders. Down here, you can see the 8-speed box, very, very good. You put it in here, and then you can stick it into manual to drive it, sport, etc. Or you can use the paddles at your choice. Let's put it back into park so I don't roll forward. This, again, very familiar. You get the wheel here as well, so if you don't want to use a touch screen, you can use the wheel. We get plenty of storage space down here with a USB-C charging cable as well. And let's touch on the seats, because the seats for me are really, really good. They're really comfy. They're a mix of Alcantara and leather. You can see the bolstering is solid. The Alcantara piece here in the middle is good, so in the summer it won't get too hot, which is also very welcome. Now, rear seats, whilst they look very, very good, I'm not necessarily sure if you've got tall passengers, they'll love it in the back there, because you can see the sloping roof line will make it quite challenging for anybody who's quite tall. But if you've got reasonable sized people, I think you'll be okay. It is a 4-seater car because no one's sitting here in the middle. But overall, it's pretty decent back there, and actually leg room isn't too bad as well, considering that is a relatively pushed back seating position. So now we've kind of talked about the interior. What about the exterior? Because I think the exterior can be a little controversial from some angles. So for me, I love the front. I think the front of it looks really, really good. It's got really aggressive lines. The grille is spot on. It's not too big. We do get 19-inch wheels, which of course make the car look a lot more beefier. And I do think that actually the 220i, whilst it is an entry-level model, there isn't that much really that gives it away from it being a 220i, other than the badge on the rear compared to its 240i X-Drive. So if you want the styling, you definitely get it with this. The rear of the car is my only bone of contention. I'm not necessarily a fan of that, because it does look a little bit Angry Birds, and I'm not necessarily sure I like the way the rear is set up, which is interesting, because I think for me, if you look at the M3, I love the rear, I don't necessarily like the front. So if you were to create a hybrid of both of these, you'd have the perfect looking BMW. Now, the 220i historically, and I think it still is BMW's most sold variant, so the engine that most people go for. The 220i is the one that everybody goes for, and I can see why, because not everybody is a solid petrol head. You know, some people are quite content with just having a nice sporty looking car and at the same time having all the creature comforts and the looks and the style that you get from a BMW, particularly this one, because this 220i I think is actually pretty good. Now, don't let the fact that it's only 184 brake horsepower kind of put you off the car instantly, and I'll touch on the power in a moment once we get out of here. But you do get 3 different driving modes, or 4 if you like. You get Sport, which I'm in now, you get Individual, you get Comfort, and you get Eco Pro. Now, the suspension on this car is not an adaptive suspension, like a passive setup, so it is quite stiff, but for the majority of people who are driving this, you'll find absolutely no issue driving this whatsoever. I am on some British B roads at the moment, so you'll see kind of what it's like to drive. But the kind of thing with the suspension is that obviously the stiffer it is, the better the car handles, less body roll, so it is that compromise you've got to make. But as a whole, it is absolutely manageable. I do like this a lot. Now, the weight on this car as well, it is pretty big. It's like I said, it's a longer nose. It's 1,500 kilos. So whilst 184 horsepower, 300 meters of torque, 300 newton meters doesn't sound like a lot, with its weight, because it doesn't have the X-Drive, it isn't actually as bad as I thought. Although I would definitely welcome an extra 50 horsepower, maybe push it to like 230 brake. I think that for me would be the real winner. So there's 60. You get an awful lot of noise, and that is a lot of that kind of pumped in noise into the cabin, which it gives it a little bit of character, because that B48 engine doesn't necessarily sound the greatest. If you removed some of that noise, I think you kind of struggle. Handling, as we kind of enter this lovely little chicane, let me just stick it into manual mode. Here we are. Like I said, you don't get much roll. It's it's good fun. It's not brutal, so I'm not going to end up killing myself when I put my foot out on the accelerator to power out of corners. I won't get waves of oversteer like I would get in kind of a higher powered engine car. And because this is full rear wheel drive, you know, you can lose the back end in a high power variant, whereas this, I feel it's very forgiving and it's actually good fun. Now, whilst performance isn't blowing my absolute socks off, I am having a good laugh. And I think for the majority of people and for the British roads, you're never going to really track this, let's be honest. You're not going to put this on a channel. You might want to do that. But for the majority of people who want a bit of punch, who want a bit of power, this is more than enough. In terms of its power delivery, you do get quite a bit of it around that 2,000 to 3.5, 4. And then it kind of just runs out of puff, and that's probably because either the size of the turbos on this is much smaller, so it's kind of a, you know, you get that low down boost and then it just dies off towards the end. But you know, like I said, I do crave a little bit more power, me personally. Majority of people are just going to drive this normally, and they're going to love the fact that they've got the looks of an M240i whilst driving a 220i. What about the price of this car? So these cars start base £34,000. This specific one is £38,000 because it does have the comfort pack, which kind of gives you the kind of soft access, keyless access, and the heated steering wheel, etc. And it also has the tech pack as well, so you kind of wireless charging and all that kind of jazz. So it is $4,000 worth of options, and it does mean that you are paying 38 grand for it. But if you look at some of the other cars on the market, in terms of what you get in terms of the money you're paying, erode the fact that the engine isn't anywhere near as powerful as the majority of us would want. But in terms of a proposition, in terms of the styling, it looks great. You get the nice wheels. In terms of the interior, it's very premium. It's very BMW. You know, almost, you're looking here, it's similar to driving an M4. You know, you wouldn't really tell the difference, and that, you know, that's a 60-odd grand car. The seats, really, really nice. You get decent boot space. The suspension is relatively good as well. I think the only thing really that you'd have any qualms with about this car is its performance. And if you think that 7.5 to 62 is not quick enough, then go for the 240, or I think do they do a 230? Maybe they do, I'm not entirely sure, but the 240 is the one that will give you the best moment, and it's X-Drive, so it's much better in all weather. But look, just taking the corners, it's good, it's fun, it's nimble. The brakes, yeah, they're pretty good. They're not amazing, but equally they don't need to be amazing, because this isn't the kind of car that's going to be doing silly 0 to 60 speeds. 146 miles per hour top end is plenty. You know, if you're taking this on a Euro trip or on a road trip and you're on the Autobahn, you're not going to be sitting in the slow lane. You'll be able to overtake a number of cars, and it does get there reasonably quick. Now, I guess I've got this car for a little bit of time. It's not just one video I'm doing on this. I'm going to do another one a bit later on down the line, and I'm going to kind of give you a bit more of a thought process around what it's like to live with a lower powered BMW, because for the majority of the time when I'm actually driving it and I'm not opening the taps up, it's really nice. It's really good. You know, like I've said, it's fun. You know, I'm enjoying myself, but I'm not necessarily feeling the brutality that I would in something a bit more punchy, but I am still having fun. The steering is quite direct. It's lovely. BMW have done a good job with this car. So look, in summary, what do we think as a first drive kind of review of the BMW 220i? I think it's a good entry level 2 series. I think actually it is pretty decent value for money for what you're paying for it. I think if you're after a lot more punch, don't get this, but if you're after the style, the luxury, the substance that you get from a BMW and their premium products, this is it, mate. This is it. This is good. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to hear more about this car, I will be doing another video of what it's like to kind of live with this thing, because I've got it for a bit of time. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you all very soon on the next video. Take care, guys. Bye bye.